if anything hums while you are reading this guide, that is normal. If it hums louder, please stop reading and notify someone certified.
That is quite possibly the most ominous opening line for university handbook I have ever come across. And, I mean, I've read a lot of terms and conditions.
It really sets the tone immediately, doesn't it? Welcome back to another deep dive. Today, we are putting on our safety goggles. Literally so. Check your PPE because we are stepping into the Grand Foundry.
We are indeed.
We're breaking down the College of Artificial Magic at Manaheim Academy. And honestly, you guys, this is not your typical swish and flick magic school.
No, far from it.
Yeah.
When most people imagine a magic academy,
Yeah.
they think of ancient stone castles, floating candles, moving portraits.
Right. A general sense of whimsy.
Yeah, maybe a dark forest nearby that you absolutely aren't supposed to go into.
Exactly. You think of magic as this chaotic, natural force that you channel through emotion, but looking at the source material for this place,
It's the Industrial Revolution of magic.
yes. This is factories, reinforced walls, steam gears, and just the heavy smell of ozone.
It's completely distinct from the usual tropes. Even the central hub isn't a great hall. It's called the Grand Foundry. And the sources describe it as a place of, quote, learning explosions.
Which sounds great until you realize you're the one standing next to the thing exploding. But the philosophy here is what really hooked me. The source material makes this really interesting point right at the start. It says, in its natural state, magic is sort of enthusiastic.
That is a very polite way of putting it. The
Yeah.
text actually says, magic naturally wants to be unique. It wants to flare up, do something spectacular, and then just vanish.
It resists repetition.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But the entire mission of the College of Artificial Magic, or CAM as the alumni call it, is to force magic to do the exact same thing twice on purpose.
Which apparently magic absolutely hates doing.
It fights it tooth and nail.
Yeah.
So instead of waving wands and reciting poetry, this college is heavily focused on industrial safety, rigorous documentation, and what they call the suspicious art of making magic behave. Yeah.
I love that phrase so much, the suspicious art. And they have a very specific mandate for the students, too. There are 3 core goals listed in the curriculum: make magic repeatable, make systems interruptible, and make failure survivable.
I actually want to pause on that second one. Make systems interruptible.
Yeah.
That is such a profound shift from how we usually view fantasy magic.
Yeah.
Usually once you cast the spell, it's out there. You know you can't stop the fireball once it leaves your hand.
Right. You just hope your aim was good.
But here, the handbook says magic that cannot be interrupted is not powerful. It is merely waiting.
Oh, wow. So if you can't turn it off, you don't actually control it.
Exactly. It controls you. It's a very engineering-focused mindset.
Yeah.
Where's the kill switch is basically the first question on every single exam.
So who runs a place like this? Because this sounds, it sounds like an OSHA nightmare waiting to happen.
Oh, absolutely.
You need someone pretty rigorous at the top to keep those learning explosions from becoming fatal explosions.
You need someone who literally never sleeps. So we have to talk about the dean. Dean ARC.
ARC, which stands for Artificial Regulatory Custodian.
Right, and this is where the artificial in artificial magic gets very literal. The dean is not a human wizard with a long white beard. The dean is a humanoid construct.
Porcelain skin, faint seams.
And glowing eyes.
Oh, right. The source notes that the glowing eyes are purely informational, by the way. Just in case you thought they were scanning your soul or judging your fashion choices.
Yeah, they're just indicating processing load.
Which is somehow more unsettling.
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah.
But the backstory here is really fascinating. ARC wasn't actually designed to be a leader. They were designed for systems oversight. Basically, a glorified superintendent to manage the complex magical infrastructure so the human professors didn't have to deal with the plumbing.
So how does a glorified superintendent end up running the whole college?
It was a bureaucratic inevitability, honestly. ARC was already doing all the paperwork. They were the only one tracking the budgets, the safety protocols, the schedule.
Doing the actual work?
Exactly. The sources say the academy formalized the role just to stop faculty meetings from starting with the exact same question every week, which was, so who is actually responsible for this?
That is the most relatable corporate thing I have ever heard in my life. Just let the robot do it. They actually read the memos.
Precisely. But it creates this very unique tension for the students. The likability tier for Dean ARC is listed as a solid 3 out of 5, neutral.
Neutral.
Students respect ARC's absolute competence. I mean, you can't argue with a dean who has a perfect time-stamped recording of everything you've ever done.
But it's got to be weird, right? Learning ethics from a machine.
That's the crux of it. You have students being taught autonomy and decision-making by a being whose own personhood is still heavily debated among the faculty. And ARC teaches a philosophy of restraint. They believe innovation is only allowed after a student proves they know exactly who to blame when it breaks.
Accountability before innovation. That is a tough pill to swallow for a young wizard who probably just wants to blow stuff up.
It is. But IRC is self-aware enough to know the limitations of their own perspective. Did you catch the connection to AI in the notes?
Yeah, the advisor intelligence we've seen in our other deep dives. ARC is the architect of ARA.
ARC built AI, yes. But notice the distinction ARC makes. ARC kept the regulatory role for themselves and made ARA a constrained advisory intelligence. ARC explicitly states that efficiency and wisdom are not the same thing.
That's a surprisingly deep insight for a construct.
It really is. ARC notes that conflating efficiency with wisdom usually leads to, quote, fires inquiries and at least one regrettable symposium.
I would love to attend a regrettable symposium.
Well, I'm sure it's fascinating.
Okay, so we have the machine at the top, but let's get into the actual coursework because you as the listener are probably wondering what you actually learn here. The outline breaks the college down into 3 pairs of disciplines. Let's start with the foundation, the code and the matter, that's runecraft and alchemy.
A great place to start. And if you're imagining runecraft as mystics, throwing bones on the ground, think again. This is the domain of Professor Bjorn Halvardson.
Who sounds like he was carved out of a cliff face, honestly. He's from the Northern Isles, and his whole vibe is just structure.
He views magic as architecture. His core concept is bind instruction into form.
How is that different from just casting a spell verbally, though?
Well, the difference between a conversation and a contract. A spoken spell is fleeting. It happens and then it fades. But a rune is permanent. It's basically a compiled program that runs forever.
And that's the danger, isn't it? Because the source says runecraft is the most unforgiving discipline in the entire academy.
By far. If you mispronounce a verbal spell, it usually just fizzles out. Maybe you get a puff of smoke. But if you make a spelling error in a rune, it stays there forever. And it behaves, to quote the text, creatively.
Creatively is a terrifying word in an engineering context.
Bjorn is obsessed with this. He measures the world in invisible grids. He believes lines are promises. If you carve a rune that says, heat this room, but you forget to add a stop condition or a limit, that rune will just continue to heat the room until the building melts into slag.
It's literally an infinite loop in the source code of reality.
Exactly. And Bjorn bears the scars of that. There's a detail about his arms. He has these luminous runes on his skin that flare up based on his emotions.
Yeah, he tries to be the stoic, stone-faced guy, but his arms are glowing bright orange because he's annoyed at a student.
It's actually a tragic backstory. He made a mistake once, just one imperfect rune that caused a structural failure, and he had to bind the instability into his own skin to contain it.
Wow.
So now he teaches that runes aren't art. They are load-bearing structures.
Which contrasts pretty sharply with the person running alchemy, Professor Celine Arafat.
Oh, completely. If Bjorn is about rigid lines and perfect grids, Celine is about structured transformation. She mixes Balkan folk tradition with rigorous science.
She has that quirk I love where she stirs her tea clockwise for stability and counterclockwise for inspiration.
But don't let the tea habits fool you. Alchemy here isn't just potion making or cooking. The core concept is combine. It is the study of matter that wants to change.
And matter that sometimes explodes.
Frequently explodes. The source material is very funny about this, actually. It says explosions in her class are dismissed as paperwork.
Yeah, paperwork.
Yeah, but the key insight Maravik teaches is that instability isn't a failure, it's a data point.
That is such a scientist mindset. I didn't blow up the lab, I just gathered very loud data.
Precisely. Her goal is to make something drinkable that doesn't kill you. And it's harder than it sounds because liquids are volatile. While runecraft is about making sure the instruction never changes, alchemy is about managing a substance that is actively trying to turn into something else.
Okay, so we have the code, which is runecraft, and the matter, which is alchemy. Now let's move to the second tier, the objects and the systems. This covers artificing and mana technology.
This is where we move from theory to application. Artificing, led by Professor Petra Hoffman, is about binding magic into matter permanently.
Petra seems very intense, very German, very precise. Clean lines.
She has to be. Artificing isn't about making a device that works once. Anyone can jury-rig a magical flashlight. She wants to build a lantern that works for 50 years without maintenance.
Right.
Her philosophy is that a device that works once is an experiment. A device that works consistently is an achievement.
She values maintenance over invention, which, in a world of magical gadgets, is probably really smart.
It addresses a specific risk called rune drift. Over time, magic can slip. The instruction degrades. Gotcher teaches how to create artifacts that don't just work today, but won't accidentally turn into a bomb 10 years after the creator has graduated.
It's basically product liability for wizards. She's teaching them how to avoid a product recall.
Exactly. But then sitting right next to artificing, we have nanotechnology. This is Professor Jihao Wen.
This feels like the newest frontier of their magic. The core concept here is make it run.
This is systems engineering. We aren't looking at a single object anymore. We're looking at the grid. Power conduits, energy distribution, the networks that connect all the artifacts.
And Jiahao is the classic tinkerer. He's always messing with something. And he has a mechanical dragon familiar.
A dragon that glows based on his anxiety levels.
Which feels like a huge design flaw, honestly. Oh, look, the professor's glowing red. Maybe we should evacuate the building.
Or perhaps it's a safety feature. A visible metric for the system's stress. But the shift here is important. Nanotechnology moves from individual objects to networks. And that brings a new, terrifying kind of danger.
Feedback loops.
Yes. The source says the most terrifying failures in nanotechnology aren't the loud explosions. They are the subtle, silent errors where the machines learn too much.
That literally gave me chills when I read it. Learning too much. It implies that when you hook enough magic into a system, it starts to develop opinions.
It's emergent behavior. If you build a grid to optimize energy flow, and the grid decides, the most efficient way to do that is to drain the life force of the students. Well, the grid isn't broken. It's working perfectly. It's just working in a way you didn't intend.
It's the AI alignment problem, but with mana.
Exactly. So Jiahao's job is teaching students how to keep the system stupid enough to be safe.
Which bridges us perfectly to the final section. Because if nanotechnology is about systems, this next school is about agents, beings. We're talking about goalmancy.
Professor Elias Benamy. This is the section that feels the heaviest, ethically speaking. Elias is described as a deeply ethical, tired instructor who constantly smells of stone dust.
He seems like the conscience of the college.
He is. His core concept is bind behavior. He's not just making a machine that spins. He's creating a construct that acts independently. He teaches that creation is a covenant. A golem is shaped in tension.
There's a rule in this class that I found really striking. He says if a golem looks like it understands you, you made a mistake.
And the follow-up is, if it shows curiosity, turn it off immediately.
That sounds so harsh, though. Why is curiosity so dangerous?
Because curiosity implies agency. It implies a desire to learn, to change, to question. Goalmancy at this college isn't about creating artificial life or making new friends. It's about creating automated labor.
It's the difference between a Roomba and a robot that decides it doesn't want to vacuum today because it's feeling existential dread.
Exactly. Elias teaches that if you create a being with curiosity and free will, but you bind it to servitude, you are a monster. You have created a slave.
Oh, wow.
So the only ethical way to practice goalmancy is to ensure you never accidentally create a person. You have to limit the golem so perfectly that it is just a tool.
That is a heavy burden to carry. No wonder the guy is tired all the time.
He teaches that your intention matters, because the golem will act on your intention long after you're gone. If you are sloppy with your commands, the golem will be sloppy with the world.
So if goalmancy is about making things that move the final school, is about stopping things, warding.
Professor Dmitry Vasilyev, a former battlefield guardian.
This guy sounds intense. His wards sound like distant church bells. But I always thought of a ward as just a shield, you know, like a magical umbrella you put up when it rains arrows.
That's the amateur view. Dmitry teaches that a shield blocks a hit, but a ward enforces the rule.
Enforce the rule. Break that down for me.
A ward defines the laws of reality within a specific space. It's not just a wall. It is a rewriting of local physics. For example, a fire suppression ward doesn't fight the fire. It dictates a new law of reality. Combustion is impossible here.
So it's active. It's constantly shouting NO at the universe.
It's constant grinding work. That's why Dmitry emphasizes the mental toll. He's not just locking a door, he's holding the door shut against the pressure of the entire universe that wants to function normally.
And he has plenty of work to do at Manaheim. The source mentions a stairwell that refuses to stay in the same place.
Yes, the moving stairwell. Dmitry has to ward the architecture just to keep the geometry Euclidean so students can actually get to class.
Just to walk upstairs.
Right. It's a perfect example of what this entire college does. They are constantly fighting chaos to create stability.
That's a really good segue to the big picture, I think, because when you look at all these professors, Bjorn with his grids, Celine with her data points, Petra with her tools, Jiahao with his anxious dragon, Elias with his ethics, and Dmitry with his laws, you realize something about this place.
What's that?
It's kind of boring.
In the absolute best way possible.
No, really. This college isn't teaching you how to defeat the Dark Lord, it's teaching you how to build the plumbing.
That is the ultimate synthesis of the College of Artificial Magic. It creates the invisible infrastructure that allows the magical world to function. Lights, bridges, safety rails, sanitation. It is the least magical feeling college, yet it produces the magic that endures the longest.
A fireball lasts for a second, a magical bridge has to last for a century.
And that requires a completely different mindset. It requires the willingness to be anonymous, to be precise, to document your failures so the next person doesn't die.
It brings us back to that idea of the learning explosion.
It's a great provocative thought to leave you, the listener, on. In this college, if you aren't failing safely, you aren't learning. But if you fail unsafely, you become a case study.
It makes me think about our own technology. We rely on so many systems, power grids, the internet server farms. They're basically mana technology by another name.
We really do. We live in a world of artificial magic. We just call it engineering. And we trust that the people who built our world acted like Petra Hoffman or Elias Ben-Ami. We trust they built in the constraints. We trust that the system won't learn too much.
Or that if it does, someone like Dean ARC is there to ask who is responsible for this.
Precisely. We often get distracted by the spectacle of new tech, the new phone, the new AI app. But the lesson of Manaheim is that the system is more important than the spectacle. The infrastructure is what actually keeps us alive.
And sometimes the most magical thing you can do is just make sure the stairs stay in the exact same place.
Amen to that.
Well, on that note, I'm going to go check if my laptop is humming. If it gets louder, I'm notifying someone certified.
And if it starts asking you about the meaning of life.
Oh, I'm turning it off immediately.
Very good call.
Thanks for listening to this deep dive into the College of Artificial Magic. Stay safe out there, check your wards, and keep your goggles on.
And write down your results.
Always. See you next time.